History has a habit of erasing what it does not expect to see. For most of recorded warfare, the battlefield was imagined as a masculine domain. Armor, command, violence, and strategy were assumed to belong to men. Chroniclers wrote their histories with that assumption already embedded in their minds. And yet, again and again, war refused to follow expectations. Across continents and centuries, women appeared on battlefields where no one believed they belonged. Not as symbols, not as legends alone, but as commanders, warriors, tacticians, and survivors of the most brutal human enterprise ever created. Their enemies underestimated them. Their allies doubted them, and history itself often tried to forget them. This is the story of the most legendary female warriors in history. Not myths, not romantic fantasies, but women whose presence on the battlefield shattered assumptions and forced entire military systems to confront an uncomfortable truth. That war does not care about tradition. It only cares about results. In medieval Japan, war was governed by ritual, lineage, and expectation. Samurai culture placed enormous value on ancestry, reputation, and masculine ideals of honor. The battlefield was a place where names were announced, banners identified family lines, and combat followed inherited codes. Women within this system were expected to defend households, preserve bloodlines, and remain outside the direct machinery of war. And yet, during the chaos of the late Heian period, when Japan fractured into violent civil conflict, those boundaries began to break. The Genpei War was not a clean war. It was a war of collapse, of betrayal, of shifting alliances, of desperate last stands. And in that chaos emerged a figure who should not have existed according to every rule of her time. Tomoe Gozen. She was not recorded as a general. She was not crowned with titles. She left behind no memoirs. What remains are fragments, mentions in chronicles written by men who did not know how to categorize her. They described her as beautiful. They described her as fierce. They described her as deadly. And then they moved on. But what those fragments reveal is extraordinary. Tomoe Gozen rode into battle alongside Minamoto no Yoshinaka, one of the central figures of the Genpei War. She did not observe from behind the lines. She fought at the front. Chroniclers describe her as an archer of remarkable skill, capable of handling powerful bows designed for mounted combat. They describe her wielding the naginata, a weapon requiring strength, balance, and disciplined training. They describe her taking heads in battle, no small detail in samurai warfare, where proof of kills mattered. This was not symbolic participation. This was functional, lethal presence. Her enemies did not expect her, and that was part of her power. On a battlefield shaped by expectation, surprise was a weapon. But Tomoe Gozen was not an anomaly isolated to Japan. Across history, similar patterns emerge. When military systems become rigid, when doctrines assume a single type of warrior, they create blind spots. And in war, blind spots are fatal. In ancient Britain, Roman commanders encountered this reality when facing Celtic tribes. They expected tribal warriors to conform to familiar patterns. Instead, they found women fighting alongside men, commanding troops, and leading resistance. Boudica was not trained in Roman military academies. She did not command legions or siege engines. But she understood something the Romans underestimated: psychology. Boudica's rebellion was not built on tactical brilliance alone. It was built on rage, symbolism, and momentum. Roman officials dismissed her initially because she did not fit their model of leadership. A woman, a widow, a provincial ruler. They miscalculated. Her forces destroyed Roman settlements, annihilated garrisons, and forced the empire into emergency response. It took experienced legions, disciplined formations, and ruthless countermeasures to stop her. And when Rome wrote its history, it framed Boudica as a warning. As chaos, as barbarism, but beneath the rhetoric lay a deeper truth. Rome had failed to understand its enemy. The same pattern repeated in ancient China. Fu Hao, consort to King Wu Ding of the Shang dynasty, was not merely ceremonial. Oracle bone inscriptions record her commanding armies, leading campaigns, and overseeing military rituals. This was not legend written centuries later. This was contemporary evidence. She commanded thousands of soldiers. She conducted sacrifices to secure divine favor before battle. She led campaigns against rival states. Her authority was institutional, not symbolic. And yet, for generations, her military role was minimized or ignored because it disrupted expectation. Female warriors appear most clearly during moments of systemic stress. When states are stable, tradition dominates. When systems collapse, necessity overrides custom. This is not ideology. It is logistics. In prolonged conflict, survival demands every capable asset. Gender becomes secondary to competence. Joan of Arc emerged during one of France's darkest military moments. The 100 Years' War had shattered morale. Territory was lost. Commanders were divided. She was not trained in swordplay. She did not design strategy in the modern sense, but she changed something more important. Momentum. Her presence altered how soldiers perceived themselves and the war. Armies that believed defeat was inevitable began to advance. Sieges that had stalled suddenly moved. Her enemies dismissed her as a peasant girl. That dismissal cost them time. And in war, time is decisive. These women did not fight against military systems. They exploited their weaknesses, rigid doctrine, arrogance, assumptions about who could lead and who could kill. They were underestimated not because they were weak, but because their enemies believed history itself was on their side. History proved otherwise. And yet, these women paid a price. Their victories were questioned. Their stories were their roles were softened into legend or erased entirely, because acknowledging them required acknowledging something uncomfortable. That war does not belong to one gender. That effectiveness is not bound by tradition. That survival does not respect social boundaries. In the next part, we will follow these women deeper into the machinery of war itself, how training, logistics, and command structures reacted to their presence, how their victories forced adaptation, and how history tried again and again to forget them. War does not change its rules easily, but when it does so violently. The appearance of female warriors on historical battlefields did not occur because societies suddenly became progressive. It occurred because the existing systems failed. When armies collapsed, when leadership broke down, when doctrine no longer matched reality, space opened for the unexpected. Tomoe Gozen fought during one of those moments. The Genpei War was not a conflict between stable states. It was a war of succession, betrayal, and fragmentation. Armies formed quickly and dissolved just as fast. Command structures were unstable. Loyalty shifted with momentum. In this environment, effectiveness mattered more than pedigree. Tomoe Gozen's value was not symbolic. She was effective. Sources describe her riding into battle ahead of other warriors. Not protected, not hidden. At the point of contact, she was expected to kill. And she did. The naginata she wielded was not a ceremonial weapon. It was designed to control space, unhorsed opponents, and cut through armor gaps. It required strength, precision, and constant training. Her presence altered battlefield psychology. Enemy warriors did not expect a woman to charge them. That hesitation, brief as it was, created opportunity. War is decided in moments, measured in seconds. In those seconds, expectation kills. The men who wrote Japan's chronicles struggled to explain her. They praised her beauty before acknowledging her violence. They framed her as an exception rather than evidence. But exceptions matter, because exceptions reveal the limits of rules. The same dynamic unfolded far from Japan. In Roman Britain, Boudica did not command a professional army. She commanded grief, rage, and cultural memory. Rome's military doctrine was built on predictability. Legions marched in formation. Battles followed calculation. Rebellions were expected to behave in familiar ways. Boudica shattered that model. Her uprising did not target legions directly at first. It targeted infrastructure, colonial symbols, psychological centers of power. Roman commanders dismissed early warnings because the rebellion did not resemble a traditional military threat. By the time they reacted, Entire cities were gone. Boudica understood something the Romans initially did not. Empires depend on the perception of control. Destroy that perception, and military superiority becomes irrelevant. Her defeat did not negate her effectiveness. It revealed Rome's vulnerability. In China, Fu Hao's campaigns demonstrated a different form of disruption. She did not challenge military structure. She operated within it. Oracle bone inscriptions describe her commanding troops, conducting rituals, and leading campaigns with institutional authority. Her role was not tolerated. It was formalized, which raises a critical point. Female warriors did not always exist outside the system. Sometimes, the system recognized competence when survival demanded it. Fu Hao commanded thousands because the Shang state needed results. Doctrine adjusted accordingly. Joan of Arc emerged at a moment when France was psychologically defeated. The English had superior organization. They controlled territory. They dictated momentum. French commands suffered from indecision and internal rivalry. Joan did not bring new weapons. She did not design innovative formations. She altered belief. Armies that believe they are already defeated do not fight effectively. Joan reversed that belief. Her presence unified command, accelerated decision-making, and forced engagement. English commanders underestimated her influence because they misunderstood warfare itself. Morale is a forced multiplier. Across these cases, a pattern emerges. Female warriors were not anomalies of culture. They were responses to failure. When traditional leadership could not solve the problem, societies accepted solutions they would normally reject. War is conservative until it is desperate. But acceptance was conditional. Once the crisis passed, systems reasserted themselves. Victories were attributed to men. Women were recast as symbols, martyrs, or legends, because acknowledging their full role would require rewriting assumptions. The battlefield proved their truth, but history struggled to accept it. In the final part, we'll examine the cost of this resistance. What happened to these women after war ended, how memory was shaped to contain them, and what their stories ultimately reveal about warfare itself. War does not end cleanly. It never has. When battles conclude and banners are lowered, societies rush to restore order. They rebuild institutions, reinforce traditions, and explain the chaos in ways that feel familiar and safe. This is the moment when history begins to edit itself. For female warriors, survival on the battlefield did not guarantee survival in memory. Tomoe Gozen disappears from the record, not because she failed, but because the war she fought ended. The Genpei War reshaped Japan's political order. The Kamakura shogunate emerged. Stability returned, and stability had rules. Those rules had little space for women who violated expectations of warfare. Tomoe Gozen could not be easily absorbed into a peaceful hierarchy built on male lineage and inherited authority. Some accounts suggest she became a nun. Others suggest she vanished into obscurity. The uncertainty itself is telling. History preserved her violence. It erased her future. Because a woman who fought like a warrior was tolerable in crisis. A woman who lived as one afterward was not. Boudica's fate followed a similar pattern. Rome crushed her rebellion with methodical brutality. Legions regrouped. Discipline reasserted itself. In Roman accounts, Boudica became a cautionary tale, a symbol of chaos unleashed when order failed, a warning, not a commander. Her tactical effectiveness was downplayed, her strategic insight dismissed as barbaric rage. But Rome remembered her long enough to fear repetition, which reveals the truth beneath the narrative. Rome did not rewrite Boudica because she was weak. It rewrote her because she was dangerous. Joan of Arc's fate was more visible and more brutal. Once the immediate military crisis passed, she became inconvenient. Her role challenged church authority, noble hierarchy, and gendered assumptions of command. The English did not merely execute her. They put her on trial, not for military failure, but for existing outside acceptable categories. Her death was designed to erase legitimacy. And yet, it failed, because the battlefield had already spoken. Fu Hao's memory endured longer, but quietly. She was buried with weapons, with sacrifices, with recognition of authority. but later generations minimized her role, not out of malice, but out of discomfort, because her existence contradicted the belief that military command was inherently male. Across civilizations, the pattern repeats. Female warriors are accepted when survival demands it. They are constrained when order returns. This is not hypocrisy. It is inertia. Military systems evolve slowly. Social systems evolve even slower. War accelerates change. Peace reverses it. But something fundamental had already shifted. Every female warrior who fought effectively expanded the boundaries of what was possible. They proved that competence could not be confined by tradition. That leadership could emerge from unexpected places. That doctrine built on assumption was vulnerable. Their enemies miscalculated because they believed war followed social rules. War? Dos. Not. The deeper lesson is not about gender. It is about rigidity. Every army that underestimated these women did so for the same reason. They mistook tradition for truth. They believed the past dictated the future. They believed their enemy would behave as expected. History punishes that belief. The battlefield does not reward purity of doctrine. It rewards adaptation. Tomoe Gozen adapted to chaos. Boudica adapted to occupation. Fu Hao adapted to institutional power. Joan of Arc adapted to psychological warfare. Their victories were not accidents. They were responses to systems that failed to see them coming. And that is why their stories matter. Not as inspiration, not as mythology, but as strategic warnings. Every military system that assumes it understands who can fight, who can lead, and who can matter is already vulnerable. Because the next battlefield will not respect those assumptions. History often frames these women as exceptions, but exceptions reveal rules that are breaking. When war demands survival, it strips away illusion. And in that moment, the battlefield answers only one question: who is effective? Nothing else matters. This is the legacy of the most legendary female warriors in history. They did not fight to change society. They fought because war left no alternative. And in doing so, they forced history briefly, violently to tell the truth.